On May 1st, 2020, the federal government introduced via an order in council new laws and restrictions that immediately affected hundreds of thousands of legal and responsible Canadian gun owners. It's something that every Canadian should be concerned and informed about, whether you own a firearm or not. This happened in the middle of a pandemic with no debate in Parliament and no chance for firearms owners to have their say. With the stroke of a pen, thousands of guns were moved to a prohibited firearms list and can never be legally used again. If you're a gun owner in Canada, within the last couple of weeks, you probably received a letter that looks a lot like this. A vague announcement of a firearms prohibition. You're probably wondering what this means to you. Well, you're not alone. The uncertainty and confusion created by this ban threatens the livelihoods of thousands of people that work in the Canadian firearms industry. From the mom and pop gun stores that support us, to the ranges where we hone our skills, all the way through to the instructors that make sure our shooting sports are among the safest in the world. If you don't think this gun ban affects you, you need to listen to our side of the story.
Today, we are closing the market.
That stroke of his comment cost me my retirement.
We are banning 1,500 models and variants of these firearms.
Worst case scenario, it could be a slow death to a business.
It is law. It was introduced, using the word passed isn't even correct because it didn't have to pass anything.
It's not defendable.
The amount of money that this confiscation regime is going to cost the Canadian public is going to be astronomical.
These weapons were designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to kill the largest number of people in the shortest amount of time. And the vast majority of gun owners use them safely, responsibly, and in accordance with the law. But what happens next is up to us.
WildTV and CCFR present Gun Ban Canada, sponsored by the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, Firearms Outlet Canada, LOF Defense Systems, The Colt Store, The Edge Group, Go Big Tactical, Iron Sights, Modular Driven Technologies, P&D Enterprises, Phoenix Indoor Range and Gun Shop, Prairie Gun Traders, Select Shooting Supplies, Vortex Canada, Wanstalls Online, Wolverine Guns and Tackle.
I'd bet you'd be surprised to know just how many jobs our Canadian firearms industry creates. Those jobs support us as sport shooters, recreational shooters, as well as hunters. In a time when the economy is so unstable, unemployment so high, I wonder if the government thought about those jobs and the families they provide for when they banned so many of our guns. Do they even understand what this industry is all about?
The Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition Association, or CSAAA, unlike some of the groups that people are more familiar with, we represent business owners in the sporting arms category. So Canadian manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, and gunsmiths. We work in conjunction with the consumer groups because those are our customers, but the job of the CSAAA is to represent the industry. But the bulk of our industry is made up here in Canada of small business owners, family-run businesses, mom and pop shops. So it's generally 80 to 90% of our businesses are small, independently owned businesses, which is, as we know, the backbone of the Canadian economy. The Conference Board of Canada does the economic analysis for the Government of Canada. So we wanted to make sure that we used a credible third-party resource to do our economic research so that when we go to government to talk about the industry, there's no disputing the numbers. So there are 4,500 licensed firearms businesses in Canada. So any business that wants to sell firearms or ammunition must be licensed by the Chief Firearms Office. They get a business license. And as I mentioned, there's 4,500 business licenses in the country.
It's going to decimate it. This OIC, if it stands, and this is their first wave, they've already said, well, if they get away with this, they're coming around for a wave 2. So they're going to keep attacking us. And so we need to fight back, because if this stands, I don't know how many businesses, how many communities will be available, still be around in Canada.
There's been a lot of MPs talking about bringing manufacturing back to Canada. What this is going to do is you're taking manufacturing away. So what's the point?
Well, simple math. If there's 40,000 people and you're hitting it with 25% reduction, that's 10,000 jobs. If you want to pay attention in the media, when one of the big corporations in Eastern Canada, such as SNC Lavalin, Bombardier, GM, there's bailouts, there's handouts. These companies are crying to the federal government that they've been hit hard. What's happening to the 10,000 people spread across the entire country?
It was like a bomb went off in our industry. It was totally unexpected. At no point at any time do we have any indication that this was coming. We had been talking and hearing the government during the campaign talk about handgun bans. That was a big concern. We were sort of waiting to see how that would be executed and the difficulty they were going to have with that. But once COVID-19 hit and the whole country went into sort of lockdown, we didn't expect to see any legislation around firearms. And we had been told that most of the legislation that was on the table was going to be deferred. So on May 1st, retailers woke up. About Thursday afternoon on April 30th, the Firearms Reference Table, which is the tool that retailers use to check the classification of firearms. Late in the afternoon on Thursday, it went down for maintenance. The message was that it was down for maintenance. Stores opened up on May 1st, operating as normal. At 11:30, stores were sent an email bulletin about the Order in Council and the new firearms ban. That was sent via email. So if you're a store operator, probably the bulk of our retailers didn't read that email at 11:30. And at 2:00, the government published the regulation. Quite frankly, businesses have never been protected by amnesty. They've never been included in grandfathering. They've never been included in buyback programs. And our business owners are sitting on somewhere between $900 million and $1.1 billion in unsellable inventory. That's business losses to them right now.
I have watched this government systemically choose, based on ideology, who gets to do business in Canada and who gets to work in Canada and who doesn't. That's wrong. That's not what a democracy is. That's not what a government who wants to spur private sector growth does. And it's certainly not a government that believes, in free and open trade does. It is not the government's role to moralize against a mom and pop hunting shop. It is not the government's job to moralize against the sports shooting range that I go to, because they employ people and they abide by the law.
I know that there are gun owners out there that think this is all rhetoric, or somehow what we're saying is overblown. I assure you it's not. And I assure you that everything I'm telling you is absolutely accurate. The government has already, and this is worth considering, has already in the last 45 days banned some .22s, some pump-action shotguns, and actually a lot of bolt-action rifles. You can no longer own a .460 Weatherby, for example. That's too powerful. You can't be trusted with it. And apparently you can't be trusted with a .22 if it has the wrong kind of stock, right? The wrong kind of furniture on it. Do you think you're gonna reason with these people when they decide your gun is too dangerous to own? So for me, the choice is get involved now or fight this by yourself later.
There are over 4,000 licensed businesses serving the Canadian firearms industry. They depend on us, and we depend on them. And many of our communities depend on the jobs that they provide. J.R. Cox and the people at Shooting Edge take great pride in not only supplying hunters and sport shooters with everything that we need, but also in getting people introduced to the sport for the first time. This retired Canadian Forces veteran turned business owner is not done fighting for Canadians yet. This time, his fight will be in the courtroom.
As a former Canadian soldier, veteran, I mean, I served in the infantry. That's the pointy end, right? Jumped out of airplanes, bounced off the ground. I know what military-style weapons are. And what we can buy and sell in our stores are not that. I wouldn't take anything I sell in my store to go fight in Afghanistan. The AR-15, so the Armalite Rifle 15, which is the big buzzword, the big gun that they want to get rid of, the firearm of choice. Most people don't understand that the AR-15 is like the Jeep CJ7 of the gun world. It's been around since the late 50s. It's really old technology, but you can bolt a bunch of stuff to it. So it's really popular because it's inexpensive, and there's 1,000 companies that make all kinds of accessories for it. That's why it's so popular. And so while people are looking at these images of soldiers running across battlefields, thinking that this is what is being banned, the reality over here is it's not nearly the same. There's a lot of misconceptions with the sport. The beauty of our familiarization training or packages that we run, in 20 years that we've been around, between the Shooting Edge and Target Sports, we did our calculations and we have run or introduced over 250,000 people to the shooting sports in 20 years. 250,000 people have come through safely, and a portion of that have gone on to become members of the shooting community. But a lot of people who've come in, this is like they were almost dragged here, especially the corporate functions. And I remember we had probably about, I think 6 or 7 years ago, we had a head office. So we had a whole corporate meeting of these people come in, and this woman was from Toronto. And she was very clear to me when she came in that the only reason she was in is because her boss, from Calgary, said she had to come. And she was like, I'm only here because of that, because I don't want to get fired. And he says, yep, it's forced fun. And she went through the steps, she got the training, she went in and shot, and by the time she was leaving, she was buying t-shirts for her kids. She had no idea how empowering it was, and she really enjoyed it. And once she got past the initial fright, embraced it as just a sport or hobby that somebody would want to do. She said she'd probably never shoot again, but she had such a good time and she respected what we did now, and said, so that's really what we need to do here. Is part of it is to educate people and get them past that, to see that the shooting sports may not be for everyone, but we're not a harmful part of society. I'm committing to, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 in legal expenses if I can't raise anything else. And you never know, right? You just never know. So we committed, we cut the check, we got the team going, and then we put a GoFundMe up, and we are at $78,000 right now. So I'm humbled by, and it's like, I guess more importantly, it's like over 1,300 individual donors.
If you're like me, there's nothing like hanging out at a mom and pop gun shop, talking old guns and new equipment with somebody who really knows their stuff. Stephen Adler from the Colt store in Abbotsford, BC is one of those guys. He's the kind of guy us hunters and sport shooters can learn a lot from.
I'm 73 years old. I've been rode hard and put away wet, and I have a pretty good idea what's going on in the industry. And what's going on in the industry is failing. Okay, and we cannot afford in Canada, in the economic situation that it is right now, to put down another industry. Actually, it was Friday evening when I heard about the order in council, and I couldn't believe that they had outlawed 1,500 guns, and made them prohibited. They outlawed missiles, anti-tank guns, law rockets, silencers, and all these rifles that were already prohibited here in Canada. Then they went after everything else that they could get, hoping to literally emasculate the firearms industry, which they're doing a good job. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million of inventory that has now become prohibited, and the government has made no expedited move, shall we say, to help this industry at all. They want it to go down. For us, it's devastating because we've got probably $150,000 in what was restricted products are now prohibited. We can't sell them, we don't have the income from them, and they've taken one income stream and literally dammed it up. Yes, wars have been fought, and they've been fought by guns, but the guns that the average hunter and the average collector has is not a military assault quality rifle. It's someone's imagination. We try and teach kids that these aren't weapons, these are firearms for enjoyment. You get enjoyment from hunting.
Rural communities across Canada benefit greatly from our local gun shops, not just for a place to shop, but also for the thousands of jobs that they provide. Wolverine Supplies in Virden, Manitoba is one of those stores, a second-generation family business run by retired RCMP officer Matthew Hipwell.
Like any business, it started off as a small homegrown business with just my parents operating it, and it's slowly grown to where we are today, where we have 20 employees, and we're serving customers from coast to coast in various means to ensure that they have the best options and provide them with the best products to enjoy their hobbies and shooting sports. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory that we are stuck with. When the government made the announcement, they said, you'll be able to export it. Well, the government obviously didn't check the regulations in the other countries, because some of these products, once they're exported, they can't be re-imported back into those countries. This is causing various people lack of sleep, to say the one, and worrying about where is my employment going? Where is this going to take us in the weeks and months to come? I look at a business that has been here for over 30 years, and we've just been dealt a crippling blow with no clear explanation and no real outcome as far as how this is going to make Canadians safer. As a frontline police officer, and sort of the insight on how our justice system and how the law enforcement community works, and looking at the OIC today, there is no indication that this is going to prevent violent crime. I've been following all the press releases, primarily from the RCMP, because that's who I used to work from. You see pictures of firearms seized. They're sawed-off shotguns. You see charges of unauthorized possession of a firearm. That means they didn't have a firearms license to begin with. The legislation, or the OIC that was introduced, had nothing to do with affecting people who did not have a firearms license.
During this whole ordeal, no one in the government or in the media really has acknowledged that these businesses are approved and licensed by the government itself. So I just like people to be reminded that these are hyper law-abiding people, and they play by the rules in an industry that's safely existed since before Confederation. Now, the rules change overnight, and many of these people, right, these hyper law-abiding people, are losing everything. And you know what, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly they did wrong. What exactly did they do to deserve to be treated like this in particular?
WildTV and CCFR present Gun Ban Canada. Sponsored by the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, Firearms Outlet Canada, LOF Defense Systems, The Colt Store, The Edge Group.
This gun ban is having so many negative effects on safe, legal Canadian gun owners, especially when the changes came with no warning and so much confusion. It's almost impossible to operate a business like that. You have to wonder How long will these people be able to fight for us? And what happens when they're gone? Len Kusi is another hardworking small business owner who pours his heart and soul into creating a safe place for gun owners to enjoy their sport and hobby. He was right in the middle of an expensive renovation when he was blindsided by the gun ban that's affected him and made criminals out of so many of his customers.
We had brought staff back a couple weeks. We were getting ready to open up the doors again and start selling everything on May the 4th. Put out notices, put out advertising, put out everything that we could on social media that we were going to open up on May 4th. We had no idea that that was coming, was going to happen, and it happened on the Friday before the weekend that everybody was looking forward to. Everyone's just right up that they're coming back to work, things are going to open up again. And then, bam. Got the announcement that everything that we were getting ready to start selling on Monday was banned. So over 80% of our inventory was instantly, yeah, you have it. Yeah, it's all paid for. Find a place to put it. You cannot sell it. You can't shoot it. You can't transport it. You can't do anything with it. Then they started adding to the list. A week later, added another 7,500 different guns. And then the comments are, as other firearms become popular, we will ban those as well. So we just stopped. This can currently contains everything that we can no longer sell. So when they said that it's not going to affect us too much, just in there alone is about $750,000 worth of banned firearms that we've already paid for. It affects all of the staff, all of the families of all of the staff, our landlord. We just signed another 5-year lease, so we're committed. So if we shut down, I will lose everything because of a 5-year lease for a business that I anticipated staying in operation, which may not. The impact stretches way beyond me. So yeah, I'm an owner of the business. I have a lot invested. My retirement, if this goes through, is finished. I will work till the day I die. If this goes in the direction that he wants it to go. As far as all the staff go, between 24 and 26 staff, plus their families are going to be affected, plus all of the part-time staff. Banned. There's almost all of this is all banned now.
Linda Miller and Captain Keith Cunningham met representing Canada as competitive sport shooters at the Commonwealth Games. This married couple owns and operates Milken Training Centre in Minden, Ontario, and together literally wrote the book on safe and responsible marksmanship. They've trained and provided a safe shooting range for countless civilians, military, as well as law enforcement. The changes to the Canadian gun laws threaten to destroy everything that these two have built.
If you talk to individual shooters, you'll say that what they like best about it is that they're competing against their last personal best. They are always looking to be a little bit better than they were before. If they've already reached the top at their club, then what they want to do is go to regional or provincial competition, or as many of our shooters do here, to national and international. So it's an improvement of oneself that's within your own span of control that I think really gets most people involved in this shooting sport.
Welcome to the target butts on our 600-meter range. For those who have spent any time on military ranges, you'll recognize that they're very much like a military range. We have this big concrete mantlet here that allows us to have a target handler down here in the butts while the shots are going overhead. And that target handler can pull a target down, can indicate with these little indicators where the shot might have landed, and then run that back up again so that the shooter can see where his shot lands. And when he fires his next shot, then we're going to bring this back down like this. We're going to pull this out of that hole and put it in the new hole, and then we'll run it back up again so he can see where he shot again.
The thing that affected us the most from a business point of view
was the fact that we lost over a third of our business. Just overnight, May 1st, we lost over a third of our business.
And I can tell you that we can't afford to lose a third of our business. In a mom and pop operation like ours, we do multiple different things in order to be able to, for example, pay for all of the range maintenance and the taxes on that property. If we lose a chunk of our business, we have a serious problem. We absolutely must replace that cash, or we face having to stop doing what we're doing. We run our own programs, of course, our own training for police and military, and that would be gone. We're regarded as the best trainers in police sniping in Canada. We train the trainers in that particular discipline, and that would be gone. It would be gone.
The local community would lose a lot as well, because all of our students that come here require lodgings, food, gas, and all of that would be lost as well. And if you don't know anything about a particular topic, say firearms, then you'll find them scary, particularly if all you are subject to is the misuse of firearms, the stuff that you see on TV and what's in the media nowadays. And if you don't know anything about firearms, you think, oh my God, that's a horrible thing. Let's get rid of them. Why would we possibly need them? And so the politicians have played on that fear to try to buy votes and try to alleviate the fear in the unknowing masses. They will say, look what I've done for you now. Now you need not to be afraid, because now we're getting rid of all of these bad firearms.
The OIC basically said no more ARs, and then the RCMP went through the firearms reference table, which is the one that tells us what category a firearm sits in, whether it's non-restricted, restricted, or prohibited. And the RCMP, when they went through the FRT, started reclassifying according to the May 1st information, and they went well beyond what we expected and reclassified so many rifles that most of our customers are probably out tens of thousands of dollars in equipment.
It's not just about the gun shops and the ranges. The thousands of men and women who work in the outfitting industry in Canada have been completely devastated by the uncertainty that this announcement has created.
Across Canada, we did a report with the Canadian Federation of Outfitter Associations back in 2017, and that showed that the economic benefit was $2.7 billion from outfitting across Canada, so fairly significant economic driver. Across Canada, it's over 20,000 people that are employed by the outfitting industry in Canada. This spring has been a really interesting and difficult spring for a lot of my members. Come the end of March, with the announcement of the border closure, certainly a lot of anxiety around that, and then the extensions that were happening every 30 days. Initially, I think there were people who were optimistic that we would be able to do the spring hunts, but at this point, both the spring bear and spring snow goose have been lost, and still a lot of anxiety looking into the fall. If I was to characterize it by one word right now, it would be just a lot of uncertainty and anxiety. So that was the framework that we were operating in when the announcement was made at the beginning of May around the firearms ban. And I think that that has contributed to some of the extended worry that people are feeling right now. The one area where I keep getting a lot of questions is around the 10 and 12 gauge and how that is affected. So there's been a little bit of talk on Twitter around what that really means and how that relates to 10 and 12 gauge, but nothing official has come out from Government of Canada, at least that I've seen. And while people are already worried about COVID and what that means for their clients, the limitation on firearms could also be significant for people. So waiting for more official information on that. And I think at this point, not being able to provide people with a really clear answer has been the challenge on my end. Certainly I've tried to reach out for clarification. It still seems a little bit vague, and unable to really nail down a concrete answer. So, Twitter's not enough. I would really love to be able to see something in print that's definitive, that says yes or no. And if the answer is no, then that's something that we would need to be pushing back on pretty immediately. If I had to summarize, it's a tough year already. And adding one more thing that people are needing to communicate with their clients and trying to get answers on that, it adds a lot of uncertainty to the mix. And we really are just looking for some answers, and so that people can start communicating either with their clients or with their local members of parliament.
As Canadian gun owners wonder, will the freedom to enjoy the pastimes we love soon be gone? A David versus Goliath court battle looms on many fronts, and the people fighting for us will need our support.
This ban, in my opinion, unlawfully targets legal firearms owners and criminalizes everybody in our industry. All of our customers are basically criminals, according to this move in the OIC.
I think it's really important that the entire firearms community be collected in its voice right now. You may be a hunter, you may be a sports shooter, you may live in downtown Toronto, you may live in rural Manitoba, but this is about all of us. What happened in Ottawa is going to affect every single one of us. And I think we need to stop thinking just about how it affects us as individuals and how it's going to affect us as a community as a whole.
Because we have to fight this on as many levels as possible. And if we let the liberals and the anti-gun people, which are a minority, run with the narrative and we don't counter it, then we deserve what we get.
I think that if we don't win this fight, it's not just going to destroy the firearm industry. I think it's going to literally affect the moral fiber of Canada. Because with this defeat, we're giving up our freedom.
This is a time when businesses are trying to get back on their feet after the COVID pandemic, and here we are given this deck of cards that is blowing around in the wind.
So you need to support your local shops, and you need to fight this fight, because otherwise you're going to have no options. You're going to have, 3 or 4 brands that big box store wants to carry, and you're going to be at the mercy of that 3 or 4 brands of ammo and only the specialty ones that he wants to bring in. You're going to be at the mercy of that. So fight this fight, right? Because we'd fight it for you.
I mean, it's the lowest hanging fruit for politicians to always try to attack the supply side. So if we ban guns, there won't be any guns for the criminals, which is completely false.
What we can do is we can support the people that are fighting the fight. The CCFR, the NFA, you got Wolverine and the Shooting Edge, and multiple other businesses and individuals across Canada that are against this. And they're contacting their MPs, they're contacting people from Ottawa at the Liberal Party. Like, we can't only be contacting our Conservative MPs, we should be contacting the Liberal MPs as well, expressing our concerns.
If you joined the CCFR, the CSSA, and the NFA, like if you joined all 3, it's under $150. So join all 3, right? Because they're all doing something different. Join that, because also the more members in an organization, right? That when they say, well, we speak on behalf of 50,000 people, 60,000 people, 100,000 people, that means something. Remember, and then also go sign these petitions. Even though they don't change laws, there are some e-petitions that like Michelle Rempel has launched. It only has like 220,000 signatures. It should have 1 million signatures. In fact, it should have 2.2. Every PAL holder in this country should sign that petition. It costs nothing, sign it, right? So that's when you do this. If you got a petition put in front of you that said we have 2.2 million signatures, you're gonna pay attention to it. You're gonna maybe my PR campaign, saying 80% of Canadians think this is a good idea, doesn't hold water.
sometimes I look at the firearms community, and I'll qualify this by saying it is my job to fight, and I will fight every day. But sometimes I see the firearms community just saying like, oh, well, nothing's going to change, or we need you to do something more. And it's like, I'm looking at you guys today and saying, I need you to do more. I need everybody that holds a PAL in this country. You don't get to be silent this time. Sorry. You have to phone your MP. If you have a PAL, you should be phoning your MP. You should be phoning a Liberal MP right now and saying, I am a licensed firearms owner. This is wrong. You should be volunteering in a political campaign. You should be interviewing your candidates to find out what their stance is on this issue. And you should politicize it, because the left has sure, and the government has sure politicized this issue to their gain. I don't want to look at this from a political gain perspective. I want to look at this as, let's get public policy that keeps people safe and respects our civil liberties in Canada. And nothing this government is doing gets there. So this is for all the marbles. The petition is important. The petition shows this government that we are organized, that we are not going to take this sitting down, that we care about safety in Canada, and that we're not going to let them get away with, crass ideology that shuts down businesses, that goes after people that aren't the problem, while letting the people that are the problem off the hook. So yeah, the petition's important. If you have a PAL, if you do anything in this country, you need to sign it. You have to sign it. And more than that, you have to phone a Liberal MP and keep them on the phone until they listen to you. Keep trying. Don't just phone once and leave a message. Keep trying. And it's important to phone, not email, and then get involved in a political campaign. Find a party, find a candidate that upholds your voice, and then get out there and get them elected, because that's the only way this is going to change. In the meantime, we'll do everything possible in Parliament to fight them on this.
As far as what I'd like to say to the overall shooting community, sports shooters, trap shooters, skeet shooters, handgun shooters, three-gun shooters, precision rifle, pellet gun, BB gun, what else? Triathlon, biathlon, all of those guys. You're next. They will, if they're taking this, they are not going to stop there. They will continue on until everyone has lost everything, and then only the criminals will have the guns.
All of this seems like a lot, and I know that some people are watching this and thinking, well, what can I do? And there's an answer to that question. You can contribute to the CCFR's legal trust if you can, because we're taking the government to court on several claims, and some of them are pretty big. You can also sign all of the firearm-related e-petitions. That's actually more important than you think. And if you want step-by-step instructions, you can go to ccfr.ca and click What Can I Do? We've put a list there for you. And also, probably the most important thing, make sure that this government never gets re-elected.
Well, now you've heard our side of the story. If you're still not convinced that this ban affects you, look into it deeper. Call your local MP and get informed. I urge you once again, let's unite as law-abiding gun owners, as hunters, and as sport shooters. In order to take a step towards a bright future for our sport, means we have to remember our past, where we came from, and who we are today. But get informed and make your own decision. Get involved, and I urge you to start living your life standing up. I'm your host, Steve Eklund, and in the meantime, I'm heading to the range, and then I'm off hunting with my safe and legal firearm. But then again, I haven't checked the list in a couple hours.
The gun owners that are fighting this, these people are the tip of the spear, and they need your help. So the court action that the CCFR is involved in right now is the largest, most important case in Canadian history for gun owners. And after this case is over, and after this next round of bans, Canada won't be anything like the country that you remember. It'll never be the same.
Every firearms owner should be opening their wallet and spending money, buying a membership at one of the organizations, and funding some of these fights. Like, if you don't, then you get what you deserve. And when they come and take away your Magnum rifle, don't blame us.
Don't be surprised at what the current government is doing. This is the government that brought you Bill C-71 and the return of the long gun registry. Now remember, as part of that bill, the exact same infrastructure as the long gun registry is being rebuilt, but they're only going to log the transfers of long guns. So as a reminder, this is important because I think people forget quickly. The new system requires you to call the government, get their approval to transfer a long gun, and then there's a reference number that stays in a database forever. But they say it's not a registry. The only missing piece is the serial number of the firearm. And I think if you think about this, how long do you think it will be until they require just that last piece? So all of this has to stop right now.
WildTV and CCFR present Gun Ban Canada. Sponsored by the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, Firearms Outlet Canada, LOF Defense Systems, The Colt Store, The Edge Group, Go Big Tactical, Iron Sights, Modular Driven Technologies, P&D Enterprises, Phoenix Indoor Range and Gun Shop, Prairie Gun Traders, Select Shooting Supplies, Vortex Canada, Wanstalls Online, Wolverine Guns and Tackle, Arrowhead Coffee, Bell Outdoors, Canadian Access to Firearms, Italian Sporting Goods, KKS Tactical Supplies, KS Arms, Lone Butte Sporting Goods, North American Hunting Supplies, Rampage Coffee Company, Shooter's Choice, Stoger Canada, The Sportsman's Den, Williams Arms, Wolverine Supplies.